Welcome everyone to Wisconsin Water Week. You're joining us this afternoon for a session in what we call the groundwater track. So highlighting various groundwater issues that Wisconsin residents might be concerned about. Our sponsor for this particular session is Extension Lakes. Extension Lakes is a partnership with the College of Natural Resources at the University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point. We'd like to thank them not only for hosting this session, but also doing a lot of the legwork around the whole conference. My name is Kevin Masaryk. I'll be moderating this session, and we have two speakers in the next 45 minutes talking about septic systems and groundwater. Our first speaker will be talking about POWTS, protection of surface and groundwater areas. And Mark Finger, who's our first speaker, has over 34 years of experience in the field of decentralized on-site wastewater treatment and soil science. Since 2007, he's served as the Department of Safety and Professional Services, Division of Industry Services wastewater specialist for District 4. Mark provides office, field assistance, consultation, and continuing education with division staff, county agents, engineers, POWTS designers, plumbers, and the general public regarding private on-site wastewater treatment systems. With that, I'll turn it over to Mark, and we'll look forward to hearing what you have to tell us.
Okay, I guess I'm off mute. Well, hello everyone. I guess what I'm, going to be talking about more is in rural areas. We have a variety of different types of land uses and impacts or things that occur within our landscape for different things. This slide is, I thought was interesting because of all the different impacts that affect or may influence or we need to be cognizant of in terms of protecting our surface waters and groundwaters. Be it land, road salts, people fertilizing their lawns, and septic systems in rural areas is one thing we have to treat our domestic wastewaters. We can't have that going directly to our. We can't have sewer systems everywhere. Just as a little side note, I gotta try something here. Minimize this. Oops, sorry about that. Try to work through it. Just a little fact here. 96% of Wisconsin's land are considered rural, and of that rural land that's out here in Wisconsin, 30% of the state's residents are served by on-site systems. This particular diagram kind of shows, just our urbanized areas in the state. And as you can see how much land we have here, and so on-site systems are or POWTS are going to be part of the domestic wastewater treatment for economic purposes and so forth. We'll use the word POWTS. That's an acronym for private on-site wastewater treatment systems. And basically, when we talk about wastewater treatment, we have different types of treatment. We have centralized wastewater treatment. This you would think of as centralized sewer, in urban areas. And then then we call in the industry, we call it decentralized wastewater treatment. And this is where we are collecting the wastewater from a facility, and it goes through like a treatment train and gets treated and dispersed. Decentralized systems, do provide a reliable wastewater treatment option. They reduce conventional pollutants and nutrients and emerging contaminants that are out there. They also help in the mitigating of contamination and health risk associated with wastewater. Now, one thing we have to remember, just like centralized systems, POWTS, or I'm going to use the word POWTS mostly, but you'll know I'll be talking about private on-site sewage treatment systems, is a biological treatment train that basically collects, treats, and disperses domestic wastewater to subsurface soils. Within Wisconsin and many other states, we do what we're looking at is when the water goes out to your any treat along the treatment train, we can do different pre-treatment, but the main things, we have our septic tank, which collects all our solids. There's some treatment that occurs there, and that water travels out to our dispersal component where the remainder of the treatment occurs. In Wisconsin, like many other places, there's a vertical separation distance from wherever the bottom of your dispersal component is down to a limiting factor, which might be seasonal saturation or bedrock. And that vertical separation distance in Wisconsin is 3 feet. It's bent, and 3 feet is pretty common. There's a few states that, or even counties in certain states that require a 4-foot separation. There are states out there that only require a 2-foot separation. So we're kind of in the average there. Also in Wisconsin, if we do pre-treatment where we're cleaning up this wastewater to a higher degree, we do provide some credit for that, where we only need 2 feet of minimum separation distance from the bottom of our dispersal component down to whatever our soil limiting factor is. But we do also have a separation distance when we get into sandy soils, especially more you think like glacial outwash soils where there's a high coarse fragment or gravel or cobble content. When it exceeds 35% coarse fragments, then one of the requirements is that we have to have 5 feet of vertical separation versus the 3 feet. Septic systems, then once they're installed, you have to have at least a minimum of a foot of a cover over the top. Most septic systems, when we're sizing them, we always size them based on it's not the percolation rate anymore. We do it by morphological characteristics of the soil, and then there's assigned design loading rates that go with this. And in most systems in Wisconsin, the average loading rate that we're applying is like 0.4 to 0.6 gallons per square foot per day. And so we're basically looking at loading the soils in at probably like the equivalent of 2 quarts of water per square foot per day. The regulatory agency that oversees the POWTS program is currently the Wisconsin Department of Safety and Professional Services. And this department establishes uniform standards and criteria for design, installation, inspection, and management of POWTS, so that the system is safe and will protect the public health and also the waters of the state of Wisconsin. The POWTS staff that work at the state level. We review small and large system designs that are usually pressurized, or sometimes we get kind of atypical designs based on certain type of soil characteristics that are unusual. We also do on-site consultations for difficult sites, which often bring us into the atypical type systems. We also provide assistance with the counties, all the credentialed license holders, your plumbers, your soil testers, anybody associated with wastewater treatment, and also the public. Get many calls from people have questions and so forth. When we start getting into systems that have a design wastewater flow of over 12,000 gallons a day, these get to be pretty large systems. There we do a joint review with the Department of Natural Resources on the system sizing and certain requirements between the two departments. This can't all be done alone by the state, so actually counties play a big role in the oversight of the POWTS program itself, statewide POWTS program itself. Some of the common departments that oversee the Wisconsin POWTS program, if you're looking for information, you would be looking at probably like a planning or zoning department, maybe a sanitation department. A public health department may oversee the POWTS program. In some counties, they actually call it the code enforcement department. That they may also not just regulate they may regulate a bunch of other little factors, mining and different things in the county as well. And the counties serve as the repository of all local sanitary permits that have been issued or are issued in their county. So if people are looking for information regarding a septic system in a particular county, you would get a hold of these departments, and hopefully they should have some kind of a record on that. The counties also, they provide guidance as well. They do review designs, typically conventional gravity flow systems and holding tanks. Some counties do have some authority to review mound systems or different things too. But the county also is the agency that issues the sanitary permit. We have to have a sanitary permit before we get a building permit. And also they perform all the inspections when POWTS septic systems are installed. Wisconsin has been a long leader in the POWTS program. We were one of the first states to have a uniform dwelling code, so where the rules are treated equally throughout the state of Wisconsin, not just a basic. We get into like Illinois, Iowa, Michigan, just as an example. There's a basic code that's there, but then each county has their own set of rules associated with systems, so that so it's not uniform for when you go from county to county. Where in Wisconsin, we're fortunate that whatever you do in Waupaca County is the same thing in Rock County. One of the things that Wisconsin is well noted for in the industry was research. Being Madison always has been kind of a research facility. During the Clean Water Act, or implementing of the Clean Water and Air Acts, there was funding that became available, and actually there was a group that was formed here, a small scale waste management project, or sometimes known as SWAMP, and they did a lot of research on and looking at how water's treated and in the soil before it reaches a limiting factor, and also kind of coming up with some other designs. One of the biggest ones that they came up with in practice, because we were limited on system options, was the Wisconsin mound. And many people have seen this in the landscape traveling, or perhaps have it in their own yards. This is unique to Wisconsin, and it's used throughout the United States and actually kind of globally. And it's often referred back to as the Wisconsin mound. So that kind of says, we had little part in all this with treating wastewater. With all these systems, like I mentioned before, we have to have 3 feet of separation distance between the bottom of your distribution cell down to some kind of limiting factor. So all these systems, all they really do is we just kind of keep elevating the height of that drain field to provide 3 feet of separation to act as our media to treat the wastewater. Wisconsin came up with the idea, well, if we have 3 feet from the surface, what's wrong? Why can't we just build one right on top of the ground? We did a bunch of research, proved it's going to work. And we have what they call an at-grade system, where you build a system. It's like a mound system, but without sand. Decentralized wastewater systems and soils in Wisconsin, we're blessed that by the glaciers, they have a whole variety of different types of soils throughout Wisconsin. But some of each of these soils and geologic areas have their challenges and advantages and disadvantages, or challenges, put it this way. So you can kind of see the diversity. These are actually soil orders, but you see as a result of glaciation, we have a variety of different topographies and soil deposition across Wisconsin. Existing POWTS come into play with existing systems and new developments. We have a lot of existing homes and businesses that are in rural areas that have been served by septic systems. Over time, most of these do get upgraded. just because of age and time, they haven't been, so, but anyway, then we also have, the same concern with development and dealing with on-site systems associated with along our lakes, rivers, and streams. Now, there's always this development outside the city where we get into subdivisions. These, we're putting homes on these. Not only, we have to provide some kind of safe means of dispersal and treatment of domestic wastewater, but there are other land use impacts that subdivisions pose onto our lakes, rivers, and streams, as you're aware. The key thing is with all septic systems is management and maintenance. It's just like having an automobile. You need to manage it and you need to maintain it. And so whether you have a typical conventional system or a mound system, or we're looking at different types of pre-treatment type systems, or even cluster systems. Cluster systems would be something sometimes in subdivisions to provide more or less impervious surfaces. You want to try to minimize that. Cluster systems work in providing more open space for surface water infiltration and less runoff. So the key point in a lot of this stuff these days is to, is education. We as a program try to educate our credential holders. You try to educate counties, and also we get every once in a while we get opportunities like this to kind of work with the general public and educating people about on-site systems and their use. In urban areas and centralized sewer, you can, those types of systems are much more forgiving than decentralized systems or POWTS systems. So people sometimes need to make a personal adjustment in their water habits and behaviors at home. Some of these things, dealing with garbage disposals as an example, we grind up things, we're creating more solids that go out into the tank. We're adding a little extra water because septic systems are all sized based on an estimated wastewater flow coming from the home. So we want to maybe kind of thing, instead of using a garbage disposal, maybe we want to look into composting, or if we want to still have our garbage disposal, maybe we need to pump our tanks a little more frequently, or maybe we want to enlarge our septic tank to provide more settling time. Washing machines are another thing. People sometimes with their work schedules and everything, all of a sudden Saturday's laundry day. In an urban system area, you can maybe get away with doing this, but doing all your wash on a Saturday it taxes your on-site system and overloads it and can move solids, stirs up the septic tank and move solids out into your drain field, causing it to clog or different things. Another thing, systems are biological, so we want to watch the products that we use. We want to be looking at more liquid detergents and biodegradable soaps versus powdered soaps. Powdered soaps have a lot of clay in there and those types of compounds as a binding agent, and those don't break down because they're inorganic. We want to limit our bleach, obviously, because this is a disinfectant. You put too many disinfectants into your system, it's going to kill the bacteria, and the efficiency of your system isn't going to work. Fabric softeners neutralize everything. That's what makes everything soft. And when it gets into the septic tank, kind of neutralizes and keeps the solids from separating. And we get more of sometimes we'll see if you use a lot of fabric softeners, things get homogenized. There's not a separation of solids and scum. So be careful if you on those. Dishwashers, again, using liquid, they add solids and so forth. Make sure you use gel or liquid type soaps versus powdered soaps. Do laundry, people need to understand that they need to do full loads, scrape their dishes with solids, make sure the systems. Bathtubs, these all influence our systems too with overloading. People use a lot of bath oils and stuff. Now we're adding oils, that's fats, oil, and grease. And if that doesn't settle out, that goes out into our drain field. The same thing, so we get into, grinder pumps in homes where we have a basement and basement water, or in some instances I've seen where the whole house is plumbed into a grinder pump, and this pumps up into a drain field. Now we've just ground up everything to fine solids, or finely ground solids, and so it takes more time for that to settle. So we should be thinking about making our septic tanks a little more longer, or pump more frequently. Water softeners and iron filters are a big thing. In rural areas on private wells, we may have hardness and we may have iron in our water. Adding these wastewaters into the system creates excess wastewater flows to the system, which might affect how the performance of the system, and maybe cause it to, begin discharging to the ground surface. So we might want to look at alternatives of diverting this water, or rerouting it maybe to some kind of a mini type of a dispersal area, or maybe some kind of a little tile system outside away from the house. You can actually discharge this to the ground surface, but a lot of people don't like that. It tends to kill the lawn, the grasses, and kind of a nuisance. So one of the things, we're putting on all these new systems and so forth, but we want to, maybe we got to be thinking about, the existing systems that we have. And I just want to talk a little bit here quickly on failing on-site systems. There's actually a state statute 145-245 that defines the definition of a failing system. This would be one where we're discharging sewage or effluent into surface water or groundwater. This is why we have a vertical separation distance to act as a treatment media before we reach the bedrock, or before we reach the water table. And so if we get situations where that vertical separation distance isn't at least 3 feet, or and you get into situations where it might be a foot above the water table, this could impact our groundwater. We also have a thing where definition of sewage in that into zones that of saturation adversely affect the operation of a POWTS. This would be more of a situation where you get dense soil type materials that causes perched water tables and so forth, or something where the soil is saturated right beneath the system can have an impact on the longevity. Also, discharging of sewage into drain tile, or in the zones of bedrock. Drain tile, you can often think about, especially in rural areas, people tile their fields to keep them drier for harvesting and so forth. Sadly, some of these existing systems get tied into these drain tiles, and and they flow out to wherever the exit of that drain tile goes. And discharging to the ground surface, obviously, much like this, we know we have a problem. That's people understand a failing system when they see this. And they also, if it's backing up into the structure being served, oh, we know we have a problem if it's backing up into the house. So these are 2 signs that most people see. And then, so part of maintenance and everything, you want to have your system checked and maintained, because we don't want an incident like this, where you have an accident where somebody maybe falls in there, or some equipment or something falls into a septic tank. And I guess I wouldn't laugh, because I've known people whose animals or their lawnmowers and even themselves have broken through septic tanks. So it's not uncommon sometimes. So to kind of keep moving along here, I guess, a well-designed, installed, and maintained POWTS will protect surface and groundwaters. The question is, what of the future? So if we're putting in all, if we're updating and we're putting in good systems, and we know they're functioning, and we're treating our wastewater, we got the right separation distances, how do we address or update some of these existing systems that are still out there that may not meet the definition of a failing system? How do we, when we got, we go into an area and we see, we got mound systems all around, but you have homes there that don't have mound systems. How do you address some of those types of things? Should the current septic system evaluations which are done. People do septic system evaluations, but they don't always look at all the system, the definitions of a failing system. They just at the obvious ones. So should these septic system evaluations address all the criteria of a failing system, including, what are the soil conditions in which the drain field is installed? And if we do that, when is the best time to do a more in-depth evaluation? Some counties have had ordinance or different things that when property is sold or transferred, we take a look at the entire system, including the soils. And it's probably a good idea because at that time we have money being exchanged. Sanitary surveys have been done across the state at different areas. To like our own lake associations, especially different things like that. But there, then the burden of costs falls upon those people. So this economics sometimes comes into play with sanitary surveys. And if we do decide to do something like this, what kind of procedures are we going to require in installing this?
Thanks, Mark.
Okay, yep, I'm done.
We're going to have to transition over to the second speaker here.